Welcome to Algebra 1. The learning goal for this episode is to learn how to factor polynomials in the form ax² plus bx plus c. In class, we've looked at area models to help us visualize factoring ax² plus bx plus c. In this video, we'll just concentrate on the algorithm for factoring. We're going to learn a method for factoring trinomials in the form ax² plus bx plus c, so something times x² plus something times x plus a constant. To do this, we're going to utilize a step-by-step procedure that, once you've done it a few times, should make this pretty straightforward. We'll call it the Xbox method. The basic idea behind the Xbox method is to find two numbers that multiply to equal the product a times c, and then add to equal b. We'll use this graphic in the shape of an X to help us. Let's look at some examples. We want to factor this trinomial, 2x² plus 7x plus 3. To use our Xbox method, we need to identify what a, b, and c are. For this problem, a is 2, b is 7, and c is 3. Therefore, the product of a and c, which are 2 and 3 in this problem, is 6. Now we use our X graphic. We want to put the product ac in the top spot and the value of b in the bottom spot. For this problem, that means we put 6 on the top and 7 on the bottom. So now we need to find two numbers that multiply to 6 and add to 7. 6 and 1 are two numbers that multiply to 6 and add to 7, so we fill those in our other two spaces. Now we rewrite our trinomial and split our middle term, 7x, into two terms, 6x plus 1x. The 6 and 1 came from our X graphic. Note, it does not matter which order you put the 6x and 1x, you'll still get the same factors in the end. Now we factor by grouping. We'll group the 2x² and 6x together, and the 1x and 3 together, and then factor the greatest common factor out of each of them. The GCF for the first group is 2x, and the GCF for the second group is 1. And we get a common factor, the quantity x plus 3. Therefore, we can write this in factored form as the quantity 2x plus 1 times the quantity x plus 3. Same idea in this example. I want to factor by using the Xbox method. In this case, my value of a is 3, b is 14, and c is negative 5, which means my product, a times c, is negative 15. Those negatives are important. So I'm trying to find two numbers that multiply to negative 15 and add to 14. Positive 15 and negative 1 multiply to negative 15 and add to 14, so I fill those in. So now I split my middle term, 14n, into 15n and negative 1n. Then I factor by grouping. I group 3n² and 15n together, which have a GCF of 3n. And I group negative 1n and negative 5 together, which have a GCF of negative 1. Notice how we made an addition and then put the negative 1 inside the parentheses. This makes it easier when that term is negative. Now I see a common factor of the quantity n plus 5, so my factored form is now the quantity 3n minus 1 times the quantity n plus 5. Remember, you can always check this by multiplying that back out and see if you get the original polynomial. Let's try another one. This one is actually a little easier, but also a little trickier the first time you see it. Notice that there's not a number in front of the x². That doesn't mean that a is 0, however. There's really a hidden 1 there, since it's really 1x². So a is 1, b is negative 5, and c is 6. Therefore, my product, a times c, is also 6. Which means I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to 6 and add to negative 5. Negative 2 and negative 3 are two numbers that multiply to 6 and add to negative 5. If you think about it, you should be able to realize that in cases like this where it has to multiply to a positive but add to a negative, both numbers are going to have to be negative. So now I split my middle term, negative 5x, into negative 2x and negative 3x. Now I factor by grouping. The greatest common factor for x² minus 2x is x, and the greatest common factor for the negative 3x plus 6 is negative 3. Again, notice how we made an addition and put the negative 3 in the parentheses to make this easier. We now see a common factor of the quantity x minus 2. So my factored form is the quantity x minus 3 times the quantity x minus 2. You might notice that negative 3 and negative 2 are the two numbers we originally found. For the special case like this, when a, the coefficient of x squared, is 1, this will always be true. So, once you find your two numbers, you can skip right to factored form if you wish, and not do the factor by grouping. Be careful though, as this only works when a is 1. Now for our guided practice section. We're going to work through some problems together. You do not need to write down these problems, just step through them with me. At each step I'm going to prompt you with the question you should be asking yourself, then I'll pause for about 5 seconds for you to think about it and answer it for yourself. Then I'll show you. So, first question, what are we trying to do here? What we're trying to do is factor this trinomial. How do we do that? First, we identify our values of a, b, and c, and our product, a times c. In this case, a is 3, b is negative 17, c is 10, so a times c is 30. Now what? Now we need to figure out which two numbers multiply to equal 30 and add to equal negative 17. What do we do next? We split our middle term, negative 17x, into negative 2x and negative 15x, the two numbers we just found. Now what? Now we factor by grouping. We find the greatest common factor of each group, then find our common factor of 3x minus 2. We then write our polynomial in factored form, the quantity x minus 5 times the quantity 3x minus 2. Let's try another one. What do we do first? We identify that a is 1, b is 10, and c is negative 39, which means our product a times c is also negative 39. Now what? Now we try to find two numbers that multiply to negative 39 and add to 10. 13 and negative 3 multiply to negative 39 and add to 10. So what's the next step? Our next step is to split our middle term of 10x into 13x and negative 3x. Again, it doesn't matter which order we put them. Now what? Now we factor by grouping, finding the greatest common factor of each grouping, find our common factor, and then write it in factored form. In this case, the quantity x minus 3 times the quantity x plus 13. We're done. Now for the self-check section. In this section, you're going to physically pause the video as you work out the problem on paper in your notebook. Then you'll press play to check to see how you did. You'll have 5 seconds to pause the video after I stop speaking, before I show you the solution. Please pause the video and work out the problem now, then press play to check. Here is the solution. Please compare this to your work. Pause the video here if you need more time to compare, then press play again to move to the next problem. Same thing in this problem. Pause the video, write down this problem, and work it out in your notebook, then press play to check. Please pause the video now. Here's the solution. Again, pause the video if you need more time to compare this to your work. In closing, let's review our learning goal. We wanted to learn how to factor polynomials of the form ax2+bx+c by using the Xbox method. We did that by finding two numbers that multiplied to a times c and added to b. Then we split the middle term, bx, into those two numbers, then factored by grouping. We also remember that if it was just x squared, there's really a hidden 1 in front of it, and that is our a value.